When we were based at 77 Walworth Road, I started coming with my father, and I guess probably the first time was when I was about 10, so that would be 1964. I used to come on an occasional basis with him. School holidays, half day opening on a Thursday in those days, and I used to come along with him. I first started to work here in 1981. In fact, I started the day after Charles and Diana got married, and I've worked here for the last 31 years. Back when we were at 77 Walworth Road, of course the Walworth Road was very, very different. This was before they built the Haygate estate, and so shops ran the whole length of the Walworth Road from the railway bridge right the way to where we are now. And there were shops on both sides of the road in those days. At that particular time, the shopping centre, Elephant and Castle Shopping Centre, was under construction. There was a very, very strong community spirit, a completely different atmosphere to how it is now. My grandfather was well known in the area, and he would simply send me off to shops without any money at all. He was into photography, so he'd ask me to go off and get him some film or something, and he wouldn't give me any money. I'd go down there and have to explain to the person who I was, oh yeah, it's for Harry, that's fine, give it to me, I'd take it back, and he'd give me a bill, and I didn't have to go back to the shop again the second time with the money. It was just a very different atmosphere, and of course it was quite a poor area back then, a very, very different mix of people and everything else. I always remember being pretty apprehensive when I walked along, because there was lots of guys that were referred to in those days as sort of meth drinkers, sitting on walls drinking sort of spirits of some description or other, and I was always a little bit, as a young child, nervous as I walked past these people. Completely different, and I've seen the area change tremendously over the years. You get different people from different ethnic backgrounds moving into the area, and of course in recent years we've seen such an influx of South Americans, again changing the area quite dramatically, positively I think as well. When we were at 77 Walworth Road, the shop had been there since 1844. It had been fitted out completely in 1844 and had all sorts of equipment, and everything was driven by little steam. It was like a little steam engine in the basement. Right the way through the building, going up through the floors, were belts that drove all these different machines on different floors of the building. You start this machine up and it would start, these different contraptions, herb grinders and powderers and everything else would work in. You could put levers across and the machine would suddenly start going. Of course, the shop had been fitted out in a very ornate style. That shop was compulsory purchased when they wanted to build the Haygate estate, and we moved out of there in 1968. A lot of the stuff from there was lost because it was the 60s. Everything was changing. Nobody wanted old things. I mean, looking back now, everybody would say, oh, you're an idiot to throw that lot away. And of course, we were moving out of a very big premises into initially a very small premises. We only had the ground floor of 173 Walworth Road when we moved down here. And it's only later on we acquired the upstairs of 173 and both the upstairs and downstairs of 171 and joined the two together. Products were completely different. The 1974 Medicines Act changed what you could and couldn't sell. And of course, up until that point, we'd had a whole series of products, herbal remedies, cough remedies, things like this, which had existed for quite a considerable length of time. In 1974 you had to apply for licences of right, and so you got given a licence, but those licences were then evaluated over a time, and a lot of these products have subsequently disappeared, or require a product licence, which is so expensive that unless you're a very big company you're not going to be able to afford to do it. We had a massive range of products, a huge number of herbal tablets, capsules, all of these types of things. Tablet and capsule companies who manufacture that type of thing have become increasingly regulated, and what that's meant is that small runs of things have become prohibitively expensive, and so many products fell by the wayside as a result of that. Plus, things that we would have produced ourselves require premises of a particular standard now, not something that we could do on site here. They have to be, filtered air and all of this type of thing. I would think more than 99% of the products we produced back in those days are no longer in existence. I think a lot of the smells of the shop still exist. The problem for me is I've been here so long that my mind now blocks them and I can't smell them. People tell me when you walk into the shop there is a smell, an underlying smell of all the different herbs and oils and everything else here. And I remember it so clearly, and occasionally if I've been on holiday for a couple of weeks, when I walk in I catch that smell. And I remember it so well from when my father used to come home from work. He always had that very distinctive smell with him. And it was a nice smell. It was just like a cacophony of different things all coming together. When I first used to come with my father, there were people who I guess we would best describe as locals. As time went on, and certainly over the early 70s, we saw a lot more Afro-Caribbean customers come into the business because they were familiar with herbs back from the West Indies, and because of their background and their knowledge of herbs and everything else, they became very familiar with the shop. They were very interested in herbs and herbal remedies. They were familiar with making their own products in the West Indies, and so that was what they were looking to carry on doing. We started to stock an increasing number of herbs which they were looking to buy. I mean, things like sarsaparilla root and Cheney root and very West Indian herbs, cerasee, all of the ones that gain popularity amongst everybody now. I think we continue to have a large number of West Indian customers, but also as the population of London is constantly in flux, you see changes all the time, you know. When I was young, there was a number of cough medicines I used to really like. Balsam of lungwort, it was made with honey and a number of herbs. But we've always used different herbs and herbal treatment my whole life. I mean, that was just normal for me. I was very familiar with a lot of the products that we used to use and would see them in the house all the time. Everything that I'm familiar with about the business and everything else is the conversations I had with my father. We worked together for a number of years. I was here in 81, my father didn't retire until 95. We discussed and understood everything that was happening in the changes in the business throughout that period. There's so many people who I recall. I remember an enormous number, and we still have a lot of them coming in here. And so many people, in fact, the majority of whom I don't even know their name, but you know, you're just so familiar with their faces, and they're regular customers, and you used to see them all the time. I think you always remember the outgoing, bright people, don't you? The people who want to come in and have a chat and a laugh and a joke. You know, very colourful, exuberant characters that used to come in all the time. And in fact, as I say, many of them I still see now. I mean, obviously we're all getting quite old now, and we change. The business has changed enormously over the last 30 years, completely different. When I first came here, we didn't pre-package anything. Everything was packed when the customer came in. So if the customer came in and wanted to buy comfrey herb, we'd say, how much would you like? And we'd go off and weigh 4 ounces of comfrey herb. There was no price list or anything. Everything, you either had to remember the price of everything, or it was written on the bag that it was in. It was entirely shop driven. There was no other aspect to the business at all. So either people came in the shop or we did no business. All of these things have changed completely since I've been here. A bigger percentage of our business is conducted by mail order than anywhere else. We publish catalogues every year, and we pre-package everything. Nothing is done in the way that it used to be. It's much less stressful for the staff in the shop because everything is ready for them to take off the shelf and give to the customer. I mean, customers would be here for hours in the old days. I mean, literally, if they come in with a big order, you could be 2 hours serving somebody while you weighed everything, packed everything, labelled everything. You know, we used to beg people to drop the order off and come back and pick it up later on. But, I mean, we just had to change as time went on. And, of course, it changed from imperial weights to metric weight. With packing everything to order and all the rest of it, it was a really dusty environment because you're constantly opening bags, closing bags, tipping stuff out, putting stuff away. The great benefit of pre-packing now is that it's all done in controlled conditions. We can keep everything cleaner and tidier. It's much better in so many ways. Much better working environment, much better in every way, I think. As I say, when I first was here, it was a lot of pre-made medicines. What people want, what people are interested in, all of these things have changed several times in the period between my starting here and now. We've seen a huge growth in interest in aromatherapy and things like that. Another thing, for example, is the amount of people now who encapsulate their own herbs. So we sell actually capsules to be able to do that. When I first was here, I was entirely in a customer-facing role. I would stand in the shop, serve customers all day long. My role now is much more administrative. But I mean, when I first came here, there was probably 6 staff in total, including myself and my father. We now employ 31 people. We're a big presence on the internet. We do a lot of business by mail order. I mean, we're talking now in the run-up to Christmas, we're sending out over 200 parcels a day. You know, I spend an awful lot of time ordering different things. I hardly ever speak to customers. I personally really enjoy dealing with people. Now, obviously, that's at odds with my current role, but I've always enjoyed talking to people. The challenging things are staying abreast with legislation and also staying abreast with all of the changes within the market, because business as small as ours must reflect what people want. And the challenge there is to keep listening to what customers are asking for and reflecting what people want in what we have to offer. First most popular product by a long way is lavender oil. We sell more lavender oil than anything else. And we buy all of our lavender oil from one area in the south of France. I mean, we sell an awful lot of different things. Things like almond oil, which are used in massage oils, chamomile flowers. The things which are very common, very well known, peppermint herb. We stock over 10,000 items. Things I use on a daily basis are echinacea and multivitamins. I take those every single day. I absolutely believe in them, take them every single day. I use a lot of essential oils in the house. There's a great deal more interest now than there was when I first started. I think it's become much more mainstream. You know, in the old days, I think people saw it as a sort of a bit weird. But now we're very, very mainstream, I think. People want to take responsibility for their health. They want to take ownership of their health. And I think that has changed dramatically in recent years. I really do.